I guess we're live now. Alright, so hi guys, I go by Jacket, and today the class will be about Abare and risk reward and assessing risk reward. So it'll be like two topics in one for today. So I think the first topic I'm gonna discuss about is going to be about Abare. So Abare in a fighting game sense means pressing during minus phase. And usually this is done when you're on the back foot. So doing an Abare means performing a read on your opponent and interrupting any potential mix-up they might do instead of frame jumping. And the reason you want to do this in general is to prevent opponents from getting too comfortable with doing slow buttons and mix-ups all day long in fear of getting interrupted, like how things are running through. And there are many ways you can actually like try an Abare. Maybe you could do like a single jab, like 4, down for 1, big jab, and even parry as well. For in June's case, you got parry. So depending on the character you are using and the opponent you are facing, you have more or less options depending on the situation itself. Now I'm gonna give you a certain scenario. So let's see. Let me record these. Alright, so I'll start off with this first one. So the main times you want to Abare is when you actually when you have a read on your opponent that they are going to do something really slow and basically they're just not frame trapping you whatsoever. And this is beneficial for you because it allows you to actually like interrupt your opponent, preventing them from just simply going, oh, this guy's not pressing anything, I can actually just pressure him for free, and then you draw a magic 4 and it kills him. So let's say in this case, right, 4 for 1 plus 2 for June is plus 6 on block, and she can do phrases like down for 1, down for 2, and so forth. So the thing about this is that even though frame wise it is not in your favor, it doesn't mean you simply have to take it off for free. It's the best solution in this case, but if let's say you know your opponent is just going to like do this shit over and over for free, you can always try to move around and interrupt them. And yeah, depending on your character, sometimes like this would be a good thing to do, especially when you're really on the back foot and you got victims there. Now in this case, right, because she is plus 6, you are less it is not recommended as much to simply mash unless if you got the read. But let me bring another scenario here. So for example, forward 4. So the thing about this move, right, is forward 4 is plus 3 on block. So meaning she can only get like a 13 frame and below move to interrupt you per se lah, frame trap. So for example in this case, so 4 plus 3 on block, because she's like not as plus right, you don't have as much risk since a lot of her main tools are not as scary. So for example, if let's say you block this, the worst thing that she could really do, if you know her phrases, is magic 4. Because, well, magic 4 is 4 frames and this is a 3 frame move. No matter what, if you mash, you die. But you don't get combo. However, example, some Jun players, they like to do something like, oh, they do +3 and then they simply move around for better positioning, or they just go for the execute. So against people like this, right? For example, let me bring this up again. So let's say they do something like this, right? So her down by 3 is 18 frame startup and forward 4 is +3. So you can actually interrupt her with anything 15 frames below. Oh yeah, I don't have fuck. Yeah, this. Preferably you want to do 14 lah, 15 frames. This is my 15 frames because it doesn't have a 15 frame option. So in this case, right, if let's say you have the read that you're going to just do the simple mix up instead of just frame trapping, just put like a and that is basically how Abare works in general. It just means that you're mashing on. It just means that you're interrupting and mashing on miners out on a read to prevent them from simply doing whatever they want. And in higher level gameplay, right, it actually adds a layer to how you face your opponent, because it prevents you from being too predictable in just standing in and taking all the pressure. If you're really good in your defense and you're like confident in blocking, you can also add this to further to make your defense even more unpredictable, because eventually, right, because it's Tekken 8, everyone can really pressure you and chip you down, and being on the back foot isn't really recommended because you just eat so much chip damage and it just really block 24/7. So if you're confident with your defense, having Abare would help you get out of shitty situations more, because now you can like prevent them from simply crashing for free. Now they have to think twice when crashing you, because now you are introduced a third layer to your defense mashing. So Abare, okay, so I think that's it for Abare. I'll be going into the next topic, risk reward assessment, which will be even longer lah. So I'll start now. So risk reward assessment is basically just finding out the options that you have to deal with certain situations and whether the decision you are going to perform between them is the best solution to your problem. So further elaborating on the Abare topic I mentioned earlier, even though mashing against people who like to do mix-ups is a good thing to do if you have the read on it, sometimes depending on the situation it might not be the most favored option out there. For example, let's say where are you? Where is this? So for example, let's say let's say you are at the wall. So let's say, right, you are at the wall and you are trying, and you know that the guy will do something like this every now and then lah, 4-4-1 plus 2 to 4-4-1 plus 2. But then he adds another, but then he likes to mix it up with other stuff lah. Now, even though you could potentially go for a read like, oh, this guy might do 4-4-1 plus 2, I should try and interrupt him because I think he might do it. Basically, you're just attempting a read lah. And while it is fine under normal circumstances, like let's say you got the HP lead, or let's say you have a somewhat decent understanding of how the guy plays, then feel free. However, in certain situations, like for example in this case, right, this guy, my back is against the wall. Like my back is against the wall. Let's say I decide to mash right, and keep in mind, no one is perfect. Sometimes you can actually make the wrong decisions half the time. If you make the wrong decisions here, not only it is way more punishing than to make the wrong decision in neutral, because now you have the added element of getting comboed at the wall for 60 damage. all because you decided to bet your mash on a mash. You decided to bet it all on a single green now, and it cost you. So even though mashing on minus is an option, it is not exactly the most rewarding based on the fact that you are against the wall. Well, that is an example of assessing risk reward. So what it truly means is just trying to figure out based on all the circumstances, like your positioning, your opponent's tendencies, what tools you have, what tools they have, combining all of these factors into one go, into one package, and making a solution and finding out the best solution for it is what risk reward assessment is all about. So the best way to do this, right, is to first you need to know your own character first lah. That one I don't think I need to mention, because if you don't know the tools that you have, you don't know what risk to take. And second, you also need to know what your opponent has as well in terms of tools and the tendencies, because the whole idea of this risk reward thing is you are assessing what both sides can do and what is the best solution to them. So for example, let's say I'm at the wall, right, and let's say they do two things: 4-4-1 plus 2 into 4, or 4-4-1 plus 2 into 4-4-1 plus 2. So in this case, you got multiple options to deal with like people on the back foot. You could mash, you could mash buttons, you could do a power crush, you could use your movement, you could just block, or in Jun's case, maybe you could even use can-cans, like if you're feeling risk, like you want to take the risk, people state launches and all that. So this is me just trying to find out what tools I have as Jun lah, my character basically. Now think of it this way: if let's say I am put into a situation where I'm just getting mixed up like this lah, magic 4 or 4-4-1 plus 2 again, like basically more fast range. If I were to mash in this scenario, and sure, if I guess right, then fair enough lah, I guess right. But what if I guess wrong? I get comboed in the wall because through a wall splat, and well, I eat shit lah. Like I eat 70 damage wall combo just like that, all because I decided to make a read and mash. So even though mashing is an option, do you really think it's the best option in this scenario if you know your opponent is the type of person who will mix up like this? Personally, I don't think so long. So think of like other options you could do from here. Now, let's say you don't want to mash, right? But you don't want to take the pressure like like more pass streams and so forth. You have to think outside of the box lah. In my case, why not just use movement? Like even though like you block the move, you still inch yourself away from the wall, and even if you accidentally get hit, right, it doesn't matter because now you're out of the wall. Like you would rather take a bit of damage, like 30 to 40 damage, than to get out of the wall, than to get like 70 damage just because you decided to go for a hard read and fail, and you're still at the wall as well. Now this is what risk reward is about lah. Just thinking of the best decisions to your opponent's actions. Like block, and I get out, and I'm already away from the wall. I took a bit of damage, that is fine, but this is the best solution because I'm now away from the wall and I don't receive a lot. Whereas if I mash, sure, I might get a counter hit. However, if I guess wrong, then I eat shit lah. That's a full 70 wall combo damage right there, and I'm not even joking. Like, hold on. Like if you this applies to any character lah, but for Jun, it really hurts if you get counter hit at the wall just like that, and that's just why it's imperative to figure out whether taking the damage is worth it on your end lah. Especially when both sides are when you are low HP. Actually, let me bring another scenario. So let's say, for example, I cannot simply change HP lah. But for example, let's say your opponent, right? Let's just pretend your opponent is like a pixel HP. Now, you have to wonder to yourself, okay, all I need is one poke and he wins. But let's say, for example, you are like 40% HP and he's like literally just 1 HP away. If I were to do a low here, it will kill him. But if he low parries, I'm dead. However, if I were to do mids, sure, I might not kill him and I might miss my turn. But I don't risk anything because, you know, it's a mid. He blocked it and we can just reset the mission from there lah. Or I can just do my turn and just block. So the reason so what do I get from this? So in this case, right, let's say you know your opponent is like low HP, but he's the type of person to fuzzy a lot. Like let's say every time he sees you approaching, he just fuzzy ducks and tries to aim for the low. Now sure, you could go for the timing and try and try and deny his timing. But at the same time, right, if he low parries you once, if he guesses right when you're 40% HP, then you lose. You lose all your life, and then you just lose the round like that just because you decided to take the risk and do a low. Fully knowing the fact that he's the type of person to fuzzy low parry. Whereas if you were to do a mid right, you might waste your turn, but it does not matter. Because eventually all it takes is one hit. Now that's an example of like how risk reward works out. It allows the player to analyze what opponents you and what options you and your opponents have, and pick the best option for said situation. You are basically just optimizing your decision making based on what your opponent has or likes to do. So I think I'll interact with someone. So any one of you, pick a character, like pick an opponent. I'm gonna be using Jun lah, but like pick any character you want the opponent to be, and pick a scenario. If y'all can think of any lah.
I think maybe the famous Dragunov, like what, who crouched down for 1-4 into whatever it is.
Okay. Can do.
Get ready for the next
And sometimes he'll
battle.
mix up with his edge or
Oh, you mean the
back 4. Yeah, because I remember I get hit by the flowchart a lot. Like sometimes he'll do back 4 just to stop me from like interrupting. Then after that, for a while they maybe do a back 4, like near the wall. Not back 4 pull up. Yeah, back 4 or back 1+2, depending on my reaction. Yeah.
What, like this?
Yeah, or sometimes if you see like I'm not moving, he'll do a back 1+2 just to hold me there.
Oh, so they do. Oh, so you're saying they do crouch cancel and then back 4.
Yeah, then sometimes they'll stop for a while, then do a back 1+2. Like do a Blizzard Edge just to see my reaction.
I've never seen a Dragunov player that does this lah. Like I thought you were talking about stuff like, for example, down 2, and then they
Oh, this one as well, but my one, I just talk about additional stuff that I get hit by also.
okay. I think the scenario you were talking about is a bit more rare and complicated. I think I'll just talk about the one that I thought you were talking about lah, like down 2.
Yeah, that too as well.
So okay, and then the last one. Okay, so I'm sure all of you have seen something like this lah. You block it down 2 and then they go for full crouch mix up. And you might think to yourself, damn, this is really annoying. And within 2 interactions, I lost half of my HP. Now, what could I do in this situation? So in this case, right, you have to keep in mind the situation after. First of all, you have to keep in mind the situation that led to this point. So in this case, they went into full crouch by using down 2. So down 2 is -1 on hit, and it puts both of you into full crouch stance. But you are advantageous lah. So what could you do in this situation? First and foremost, well, because you are +1, you could always try a cheeky interrupt, maybe with a dick jab, maybe with a wall standing form. Both of these work. Maybe even a wall standing 3 if you really copy lah, if you have a hard read. Or wall standing launcher or whatever, whichever character you use. But the point is that like you can always, like if you face a situation like this, you can always interrupt. Now let's go with the next option. So what if we go for wall standing 4? Now if you decide to match, right, sure you would beat it, but if you go for something slower, right, for example a wall standing 3, then you lose lah. However, you will always win if you decide to go for wall standing 4. Now I'm gonna be like combining all of this in one, so keep all this in mind lah, whatever I just said. Now the last part. So let's say your opponent knows that you like to like mash, right? And they have a good read and you just don't get interrupt like this because they think you are afraid of the pressure. Third option, Dragunov can just like sidewalk and then launch you from here lah. You just with the move in his face. Yep. It's on track, oh, not even for drag. Not even for drag. So yeah, this is another option you have to keep in mind lah. Now, what if I combine all these in one go? So the first thing we established is that in this case we got down 2 into full crouch down 4, which you could interrupt by just like mashing, or you could block lah. Like you have two options here. You either mash or you block. You either Abare or you block, like as I mentioned earlier. Option 2 from Dragunov, they could do something fast like a 1.4, which will lose if you do a fast mid or a big jab. But if let's say you try to do anything else, you get interrupted. And if you try to move around, well, depending on your character, right, you might or might not make it with. So in this case, like the moment I do last. Yeah, she has an option there. Now, what if? And the third option is decided to move. So if you decided to like mash, right, well, GG's lah, you can launch. Let's combine all three. So in this case, right, I'm just going to do wall standing 4, and let's say my opponent likes to do all three situations. Now, even though, as you can see, even though I get the wall standing 4, right, like I get a bit of damage just because I get the right read. Eventually, if your opponent is smart, they can always make the right decision and just do something like that. They can just sidestep and well, kill you for it. And that's where the mind games come into play. Because you think to yourself, okay, I can just do wall standing 4 to beat all of the other options, but does it beat every option? And at the same time, is the option that they're doing actually the one they're doing the most? For example, so what I'm saying is, let's say you are afraid of the Pokemon 414 because you see a lot of Dragunons use it and you are afraid of it as well, it annoys you. But let's say you find a Dragunov player that is aware of this, and instead of just simply mashing mindlessly, they just move around to make you whiff. Now, even though mashing is a covers the options like afterwards, like they cannot do this, they can always work around it by just using their movement and killing you for mashing. So how do you bring it all together? Well, now that you realize that you can do all these three options, you think to yourself, my options are to either mash or move around. And I guess I think it would be better if I give a real game scenario. So let's say both of you are half HP. Like both of you 50% HP, and if let's say the Juggernaut player gets a combo, he gets you to the wall and you die. Now, if let's say I eat a down 2, right? If I were to just simply take this one and just like try to backdash away and so forth, right? Even if she does the low, and even if Juggernaut does the low, it isn't really the end of the road because I'm still alive. I'm not like eating a combo and dying because of the wall. Whereas if I decide to mash right and he does the sidestep, I die. Just like that. So when you put these two options together, right, you think to yourself, why not I just, instead of simply just trying to mash and risking my life on a hard beat that might not even pay off because my opponent decides to move around, why not I just defend? I can just move around, I can just backdash, I can just sidestep, because if you remember right, we already established earlier that if you sidestep right, or if you backdash lah, you basically move around. Not only will you not die to a lot, you will also, the opponent also loses his turn if he decides to, well, sidestep to make you whiff, and now you reset neutral. Like eventually he's going to sidestep, and yeah, you reset neutral. Now you know you can reset neutral, and then you can just like do whatever you want lah, like whatever gameplay you desire. So the point of this risk reward thing is that even though you won't guess 100% of the time correctly, at the very least, knowing the best options to the situation that you are facing will allow you to die less and win more interactions that you are facing against your opponent. Because if let's say you were to go head to head in a rock paper scissors, right? Obviously you're not gonna guess like 100% all of the time, but if you know your opponent's tendencies and you know their options, like you know what they like to do, and it gives you a better chance of surviving instead of just simply throwing caution to the wind and just going, oh okay, I don't like dealing with this low, I will now mash, and then he sidesteps and you die, just like that. And well, that's basically the gist of it lah for risk reward. So I think for now, right, I've already established the two topics already, because is there, before I continue, right, is there anything else you guys want to ask about the topic, like Abare or risk reward? Because the concepts that I've mentioned, right, are this is pretty much it actually. The concepts are very short and sweet, and this session is mostly going to be answering like situations that you guys want to do. So, any questions?
Yeah, you say about the risk and reward, about that move earlier, just backdash and move, but wouldn't be the same as if you just keep doing the backdash motion, it just keep tracking you the whole way and just hitting you.
You mean the low?
Yeah, the low into whatever combo it is, because he's still like sticking to your face regardless, no matter how many times you backdash or sidestep.
Yeah, true. But at this rate, right, even if he does the low, right, you have to remember you are basically just making guesses to during your defense. And if, like I said, if let's say you are both low half HP and you decided to interrupt, but he decides to sidestep and launch you, you are dead. Especially if he has heat, you are 100% dead.
So it's better to what? Try to guess and try to block, is it?
It's more like you pick the safest, or at least the best option based on what you know about your opponent and his character and their character, and just stick with it. Because you would rather decide on make a decision that actually doesn't put you in harm's way. Because you basically just don't want to do anything that doesn't reward you in the long run. So if like I said, even if you were to eat the low, right? Even if you were to eat the low, right? Sure, you eat damage and then he gets plus frames. But you would rather eat this, like imagine right, if let's say both of you are half HP, you would rather eat this than to simply just do 174 and risk them sidestepping and then you die. Now,
Okay.
I think I'll add on like another. I think since we pretty much covered the two topics quite fast, I'll add on another topic which is basically just tunnel visioning, a subtopic to this category, because that one is also important. I feel about this reward. Now, yeah. So, like I said, if you want to do, even if you don't guess correctly and he actually gets the low on you, right? At least you're not dead. You can always like think of another interaction like, oh, I'm still alive. I can try to block this next big sound. But if you decided to go all in, right, and then he makes a right decision to just sidestep, he launches you and you're dead. You all in and you lose. At least for this one, right, this interaction, you need a bit of damage, but you're still alive. You can still block. The other one, you cannot block, you just die. Because he launches you. Now, I think I'll add on another third topic. This one I just thought of it on the fly because I think this is relevant to risk reward as well. It's called tunnel visioning, and I feel like it's something that a lot of people face during like the rank sessions. So, what is tunnel visioning? Tunnel visioning is the concept of focusing too much on one aspect of your opponent, but letting everything else go. Like for example, we'll go back to the scenario lah. Let's say you know your opponent likes to do down 2 into focus down 4 1-4. Now you could think to yourself, oh, I could just mash it out, I could just 174, I could just block, and so forth lah. Now you already thought to yourself in your head, damn, this guy likes to do this specific flowchart. I will now keep this in mind for future games. While that may be true, right? If your opponent is a NPC and he tends to do this thing over and over and over, completely fine. If you're able to block it and punish, by all means, good for you. But in higher level gameplay, right, or at least like when you get to a certain stage during the game, like a certain rank or whatever, you eventually find people who are able to think for themselves. They don't actually just mindlessly autopilot. They can actually adapt to the situation. Like, oh, this guy is just retaliating in this specific manner. I'm going to work around it. And this goes back to the sidestep. Sorry. This goes back to the situation I mentioned earlier. Like, let's say he knows you're going to mash, he can just sidestep and launch you because he's smart that way. And because you are so fixated, you are so tunnel vision about the flowchart that they did earlier, you couldn't fathom the fact that your opponent's like, oh, my opponent just adapted to me. I am now angry. My opponent should be doing the same flowchart over and over and over and giving me wins. Like a lot of people in rank, right, I realized, and I've also caught myself doing this back then, sometimes even now, is that when they fight people in rank, right, or at least in general, they always assume, oh, this guy likes to play in a one-dimensional manner. Like they see a flowchart and go, oh, this guy likes to flowchart like this, I should deal with it like this. But the issue with that is that this is a game where you're fighting real people. You are not simply just fighting, or you're not simply just fighting bots that repeat the same thing over and over and over. You are fighting real people that actually know how to adapt to the situation and know how to deal with what your responses accordingly. And this is something that a lot of people tend to forget, that you're not playing against NPCs. You're playing with real people. And the moment you tunnel vision against someone who is adapting, like let's say you see a pattern and your opponent that does right, if you are unable to adapt to it and instead focus on that one aspect, you are not going to survive. You are not adapting. Your opponent will get ahead of you like by several steps, and you are left behind. You are losing. And this also applies to another scenario, right? Is that sometimes you. I think I'll give a more advanced scenario as well since I brought it up. So let's say you find an opponent, right? And that opponent is the type of person who likes to do stuff like, oh, I'm going to move around in neutral at range 5, and I like to do keep out down for 2 or whatever launcher they have in neutral, like with jabs, with down for 2, QCF1, and so forth. Basically, they're the type of person who likes to whiff in neutral and you anticipate it, and for like 2 games straight, you found out about the flowchart and beat him. But let's say you're playing a long set, right? Let's say you're playing a first to 10 and you're playing in lobbies. Now the opponent, he realizes that you notice this, and he goes, okay, I am going to stop throwing launchers, and instead I am just going to approach my opponent and just pressure him, because he's just waiting for my whiffs too much. Now, as I mentioned earlier, right, some people, the moment they see a certain flowchart, they stick to it like glue. But if your opponent adapts, like in this case, he adapts by just pressuring me, because I'm waiting so much for the whiff that will never come, I eventually eat a lot of chip damage and lose a lot of HP, and eventually lose a lot of games and then I think to myself, man, why am I losing? I thought this opponent likes to whiff a lot in neutral. How am I losing? Is it because my opponent is playing smart? No, it's because I am playing bad. And then basically it's just me trying to say that eventually if you tunnel vision, right, it leads to a bad mentality where you keep spiraling down and overthinking about situations, or just demeaning you or your opponent. And this will lead to a lot of complications down the line, especially during the match. In other words, you get really fucking salty over the fact that you couldn't comprehend your opponent adapting to you. So, how do you deal with this? Tunnel visioning is something that everyone goes through, especially when they had a really bad day. So, if you're against someone who has adapted to you, or you find a person whose playstyle that you just do not understand, but you understand certain concepts like, oh, he likes to do this flowchart, I will stick to it like you. You need to take a step back and think overall, right? Okay, you have to see it in the bigger picture, basically. Like if this guy is the type of person who likes to do keep out launchers, right? But he's smart enough to mix me up by doing pressure. How would I deal with this? Basically, whenever you tunnel vision, you always want to take a step back and never focus too much on the situation. You always just want to think to yourself, okay, I need to think about everything my opponent has done apart from the flowcharts that he did. Because the moment I decided to think about this one particular interaction and only think about the interaction, I am never going to get far. Like you would see one interaction, but your eyes are blind to everything else, and that's not what you want in the game. So let's say the guy likes to do keep out launchers and he likes to pressure lock. Now this one's a bit more complicated because it requires me to actually show you like game footage. I think I might be able to play some rank and just go from there. But in this case, right, you basically just want to this one, and you basically just want to assess what the guy likes to do. You don't want to overextend, you just want to like get a feel for what your opponent likes to do. Just take a step back and realize, oh okay, my opponent likes to mix me up by doing down 2 full crouch down for 1-4, or he sidesteps to make me with the interrupt. In other words, you are basically just thinking from a broader perspective and dealing with the situation depending on what your opponent likes to do. If let's say your opponent likes to sidestep 70% of the time and do low 30% of the time, because you actually thought outside the box and like realized this, you can just go, wait a minute, this guy is sidestepping more than he's actually doing the low. I don't need to interrupt. I can just back off. Whereas the inverse is also true. If you know that 80% of the time, right, he is going to do the low, you can just interrupt. Because you know that the guy will rarely like do the side step, right? Yeah, this will be an option. Yeah. Because you know the guy will rarely do the side step, right? And even if he does it once, if let's say you have the enough HP to work with it, then by all means. And keep in mind, this is just my character's options lah. Maybe your character has better options. Maybe your character has like a wall stand that like tracks both ways and it's still safe. So these are all factors you need to keep into mind when assessing the opponent lah. You don't need to focus solely on one thing. You just need to figure out all the options you and your opponent can do, and what your opponent will do, and work around it. Make an informed decision based on both person's abilities. And that's what it means to avoid tunnel visioning while assessing risk reward at the same time. You need to be able to do both lah. Because if you focus too much on the risk reward, you try to play like a computer. The problem is not everyone will, play optimally like you think. However, if you keep a cool head and find out all the possibilities that your opponent can do, and deal with it accordingly based on how much they'd like to do it, you will go far. Because you are able to deal with the situations and you don't focus too much on one interaction. You can just go, oh, even though this guy likes to do a lot of these tools, I can simply just because I have low HP and because I am half HP and he's low HP, I can just not overextend and let him have it. So yeah, I think that's a very long thing to say lah, Psychotank. But I think your question was really good because it allowed me, and it actually was necessary for me to talk about tunnel visioning as well. So yeah lah. Anything else you wanna ask, or is there anything else the rest of you wanna ask?
Not sure for now.
Alright. Well, for just to let you guys know, right? So the topic that I've already mentioned earlier, right? We've pretty much finished it. So what I'm going to do from now onwards, right, is just do Q&A, and maybe if I'm able to find a rank game, right, I will just play a game and try to incorporate what I just said into the game itself. Keyword being try lah, because you win some, you lose some in first two. But the point is, I just want to show you the logic I go through. So before I go into a rank game, is there any questions you guys want to ask? Alright. I should check the chat also. Lyrics, how do you counter Abare? Good question. So let's say, actually I don't even need to record this. So when you encounter a person who likes to Abare, right, it basically you can talk it say it like this. How do you deal with someone that likes to mash a lot on the back foot? Well, depending on the interaction, right, you can always do two things. You can either do your frame traps, or you can either just let them do what they need to do, like let them just panic button and then just do punish. For example, if let's say I do let's say I block a running two, right? What's a good? Okay. I can backdash. Okay. So let's say I block the move, right? And I know my opponent is the type of person to interrupt. Now, if let's say you're not confident with your frame trap because your frame trap is very linear, like they can step it or they can power crush at any time, like you fear that lah. Well, another option you can do is just give them the frames. Like you don't need to. Sometimes it's okay to just give up your turn if you have a gut feeling that your opponent will try and interrupt you. In this case, right, you can also sidestep lah. But the point I'm trying to make is that if let's say the Juggernaut, if let's say like your opponent's like trying to do a magic fall, for example, you can always like move around, sidestep or backdash if you try to it, make it quick, and just launch them. So in this case, you will want to sidestep lah. I'll just show it. Yeah. So for example. Yeah, see? In this case, let's say you know the guy is trying to like mash a lot, right? Sometimes it's okay to just not do anything. You can just move around, and the moment you see them with, you move around, kill them. That's one way of like dealing with Abare. You either frame trap them. But if you think they're going to do parry, power crush, movement or whatever, don't take your turn. Just move. But in this case, I really need it down for 2 lah, but like just for bot pressing purposes. In a real match, you will just move around and react the moment they press a button. Like you sidestep and then you do a launcher the moment you see them able to move. But if they do nothing, you just block up. You know what I mean? They waste their turn, they waste, and now you get free damage, just like that. And that's basically how you deal with Abare lah. And depending on the character you are using and what your opponent is using, your options may be limited or increased. So figure out what your opponent what you have for good frame traps or good call out for people who like to mash, and just go from there lah. So let's see. Probably okay. Gauks, I see this. Probably a noob question, but how do you know which move you block is -12 and etc. so you can punish properly instead of just doing punish always? For example, a character we didn't land and meet on rank. Now, the only way you could find out if a move is -12 is by labbing. Because there's no way to know the frame data of a move without just studying it lah. You wouldn't be able to take an exam without studying, so it's the same concept here lah. You wouldn't find out a character's moves without studying, and that's essentially how it is lah for knowing the moves.
Usually, I think if I'm not mistaken, usually there's a general rule of thumb of like how minuses most commonly for certain move. Like I think Hopcake most commonly is -13 on block if you notice for most character, or like down forward 2 is mostly safe, -8 to -9, unless special cases that can usually catch people while crouching, then you'll be like -11 or -12.
Yeah. Alright. Okay, I'll respond first. Okay, so yeah, it's like he said, there's a lot of moves that actually have a general they generalize the frame data for some of these tools. Like he said, for example, down for ones, sometimes they're like -1 or -2 around there. Sometimes hopcakes are like -13. Not all up, but like most of them. In her case, for some reason it's -12. However, because it's a 2-hit move, right, you can actually, like, I'm sure a lot of people don't know this, but if let's say you block the first hit of the hopkick, you can just sidestep the second hit and then launch. So technically, if you are on point, it's actually launch punishable, the hopkick. But frame wise, it's -12 lah. So it's not. So the convention of like all hopkicks being -13 doesn't really follow everyone, because Tekken is just like that lah. There are some characters where there are always like exceptions. This game has a lot of exceptions. Now, let's say you don't. Let's say you want to find out if a move is. You want to find out if a move is like -12 or not. The only way you could really do it without lagging and you just like playing in the game, right? First time you meet a character, but you want to actually like punish some sample, you have to start off with a 10 frame lah, like in this case 1-2. And from there, if you feeling ballsy, right, you just move up a bit lah. Let's say you have a safe 12 frame, you can just go from there. Like, oh, I think this move is -12, I'll just increase the punishes. But like, you basically just have to go through trial and error lah if you're not willing to land. But honestly, right, if you're going to find out like what the frame data of the opponent, you are better off just landing the move itself and finding out from there. Because going through trial and error, while it is a possibility, right? People like, for example, for the Malaysians, right? If you know, you probably heard of a pop player named Zaba. He doesn't actually know frame data at all. He goes through trial and error by just going, oh, this move is this unsafe, this move is not unsafe, and so forth. He actually goes through trial and error. Now, you can still do this, and it's not a bad thing. But the problem is, it'll take you a decade. Like him, it'll take you a decade to actually like realize that, and you won't figure out all of them. So, if you want to figure out the frame data of a move, go to the lab, go to practice mode, and yeah lah, hopefully that answers your question. Anything else? Anyone else? If no questions, then
That's one. Let's say you're facing a Jun. There's an ad kick. How close is that on block?
how what?
The ad kick. Like from sidestep, I think. Yeah, that. Oh, okay. Say he does that on the wall and then use a mid that has a string. Like does Jun down forward 1 or 2 has a string?
Yeah. So her down for 1, -3 of block lah,
And-
but she got extension.
Okay. Okay, so that into down forward 1 stop and then he force another mid up. Sometimes he complete the mid. Yeah.
Now,
That's one situation at the wall that I hate. Do you have a solution? Like,
they just like do the down for 1, or they complete the extensions, or they
the first stop and then back to sidestep 3. Yeah.
all lah, yeah. So I see. Well, the thing about this, right? It's the same topic about risk reward lah, like I mentioned earlier lah. You have to know.
Yeah.
After blocking, in this case, right, the starting point is the sidestep 4. Now in this case, right, like, okay, so let's go back to the topic we were talking about earlier, assessing which reward. So in this case, the starting point was the sidestep 4. You block the sidestep 4, and he likes to do mix up. Maybe he likes to do down for 1 for frame trap. Maybe he just likes to do sidestep 4 over. Now, keep in mind that sidestep 4, because she's doing a sidestep motion as well, she actually uses her turn the body to sidestep. And you can always interrupt her with like a jab or magic ball or whatever. However, what if she does a frame trap? It's +6. I can always just do a down for 1, a magic 4, a down for 2. The same concept as shown earlier. If I were to do like 4 I do the magic 4 to the wall. If I do this and my opponent tries to mash, I do magic 4, I get a full combo, 70 plus damage.
Yeah.
Now, you need to, if you were to be put into this scenario, right, you will need to think to yourself, okay, after sidestep 4, what does my opponent like to do? My opponent, like, if I were the Jun, right, maybe like say I would like to use down for 1, I would like to use forward 4 in case if you like to do like side steps. I would like to use like number 3 or down 4 if you can go pokes. And I would try and like extend the pressure, like for example, use side step 4 for 1+2. let's say you fight a, let's say I think of a random June player, right? Let's say you fight a random June player and he blocks side step 4. And the 3 moves they like to do, I'll pick it random. Down for 1, magic 4, or forward 4. I'll just pick these. I just pick these 3 moves at random. So first you need to figure out what tools they like to do after the side step 4. That's the first and foremost thing. You need to figure out what you need to look out for. Second, you need to figure out how much they do this tool. So for example, down for 1, magic 4, and forward 4. Yeah. Let's say between these 3 tools, right? He does down for 1 60% of the time, magic 4 30% of the time, and forward 4 10% of the time. So the probability between the 3, right, is that 6 out of 10 times he's going to do the down for 1, whereas 1 out of 10 times he's going to do the forward 4, and also 3 out of 10 times he's going to do magic 4. So the thing, so going back to that, right, down for 1 and magic 4, they are both fast tools, but putting the plus frames aside, they are also quite linear. Unless if you are a big male character, right, you are most likely going to set the tools and launch them if you manage to get them to it. Whereas if you get hit by the forward 4, right, this is guaranteed. And this is also guaranteed. However, because like I said, right, he only does it 1 out of 10 times, you have less reason to worry about it because you know that the opponent is not the type of person to do it. And even then, right, you also have ways to cover your options when moving. Like you got side step block so that you don't get hit by the forward 4, while also making sure the down for 1 and the magic 4 win. And basically that's the concept of risk reward lah. You are finding out what options that your opponent likes to do, how much they like to do them, and how you are able to deal with such situations. In this case, 2 out of 3 options are linear and they're the most used within like these 3 moves. Number 1, 4, 4, 4. So if let's say you were Dragunov, you can just like side step block. That way you can make the linear moves with while also blocking 4-4 at the same time. Now that's the concept of assessing risk reward, and that's how you deal with the situation. So let's say you're at let's say June. Let's go back to the situation we're talking about, Sunset 4, a real case scenario. Let's say, okay, let's see, you are just facing at the wall. Now, first things first, you need to figure out what they like to do afterwards. Do they like to just loop this over and over? Do they like to bait trap? Do they like to use your lows? Do they like to use grabs? And so forth. First,
yeah. What's June fastest low? How many frames?
15 frame, -1,
15.
and it's 4.
So that also frame trap since he's +6 from side step 4.
Yes, but keep in mind,
Wow.
right, that's not a bad thing, because even though it tracks and it's 15 frame trap, it's -1 on hit, and even though it has tracking, right, it allows you to, it gives you the option, it opens up an opportunity for you to simply do something like a jab lah. Like in King's case, you can just do 1-2, like 1-1, 2-1, or if you know your opponent is the type of person to look out for that, you can just sidestep away from the wall. You are playing the mind game based on based on your opponent's tendencies.
Okay. So here's a scenario. The June like to do side step 4 into down forward 1, stop, and then do another side step 4. And then, he do that one time, and then side step 4 into down forward 1 string, down forward 1-2 to catch me Abare or side stepping after down forward 1.
It would be easier for me if I were just to put this video Okay,
So
so
it really made me think like I have no other option than to guess to block the extension. If I guess wrong, then he take the turn again. He take the plus move again. He get to make another mix up situation again. Like it
now,
felt like a hopeless situation for me
now in this,
because don't for one frame trap and the string also trap. But if he doesn't continue the string, and I guess he will continue the string, he can just do another plus frame move.
now, let's say I'll put an even harder scenario on top of that. Let's say, okay, you are against the wall. Now, let's say you are in this scenario, right? Basically this one. Side step 4, and then they do the extensions, or they just do something like this one. They loop it over and over. Now,
Yeah.
think about it this way. He didn't do a single, like your statement, right? She did not do a single low in that interaction. And even though you could mash and like potentially get covered, because she's not really doing anything scary like shows or lows, you can always just what? You can always just do the best possible situation. Block, and side step.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like not every even though you're on the back foot, right, not every situation requires a response. Sometimes no response at all is actually a good thing, because it keeps them like, it actually makes them dance lah. It makes them simply like overextend and then weave. Sometimes
okay.
sometimes it's okay to just inch yourself away from the wall, just like block and move, block and weave, block and weave, block and weave, and now you're out of the wall. Yeah, see? So, and in June's case, right, the thing about her is that her lows are not that scary. Her down back 3 is only like what? Okay, it's 14 damage, and her down 4 is like 10 damage. You would need more, almost like 15, 17 times in order to kill someone with a down back 3. But realistically, right, you are not going to find a Juke player who is going to do this 17 times in a row. And if she manages that, then you did not do a good job at doing Abare lah. The point here is that if let's say you know your opponent is the type of person to just like meet you out with the down for one string, you don't necessarily need to play around it. Sometimes you can just let them do it. They're minus either way, and your back is against the wall. If you don't want to take the mix up, back off. Reset neutral. They waste their turn, they waste their plus frames, and now you get to go out for free and do whatever you want. Control the neutral better than he will. Because you're king. You got shop. You got 441. You got 44 neutral 2, which is incredibly buff. In other words, you got really good neutral tools that allow you to control neutral better now. And if you don't want to play her game, don't play her game. Just back off. Like in this case, if you were to assess risk reward, right, the risk is that if you were to mash, you will get interrupted. But if you don't mash, well, what risk is there? Like you get what I mean? Like the risk reward is better if you just don't press anything at all. Because you think to yourself, if you don't press a button when she's trying to do the pressure, right, because she's not doing any lows or shows, what do you risk? You risk nothing. You just back off. You're just backing off. And now you risk. You potentially risk. Now you win. So yeah, the concept still applies. You just need to assess the situation properly and think to yourself outside the box. I can actually, like, if it were me, I can just go, damn, I can actually get away by just moving. I don't need to press a button. She's not doing a single low. I can just back off. And then I turn it against her, because defense is the best offense, and now she's against the wall, and now she has to take the pressure. So, and that applies to ping up. Like, you don't need to mash every time. You don't need to take the risk if the reward is not in your favor. think of other scenarios that allow you to take less risk but have higher reward. In other words, in this case, just move. Don't need to do anything. Just move. Make her win. Like, so yeah lah. Do you get the idea?
Yeah, thank you. I got the idea. Thanks for the answer.
No problem, man. Anytime. Is that fucking Neko art? Yes. Yes, it is. Next question. Anyone else has a question they like to be answered? If not, I will go into rank and try and get a game and try out the concept lah. Anyone else?
I think you can just go into a rank match, right?
Okay lah. Well, for those of you who are here, right, I just want to thank you guys for coming over, because the rank match thing is just an extra lah. If you don't want to sit here for it, you are feel free to leave, because the lesson is already over lah. From here on, it's just extra, like, what is it? Extra class lah. Like, if you want to just stay over and see it.